How should we live our lives, and how should we be governed? Those are philosophical questions, not scientific questions. Science, or the quest to make factual judgments, only take you so far in making decisions about how to live and how society should be governed. There's a point at which something such as science no longer is of any benefit whatsoever. You get to what I'd call a decision-making barrier that, once it's reached, science is completely useless. Such as, how should people be governed? Now, I think there's a tendency in, especially in mainstream media and big government, to conflate factual judgments with normative judgments, whereby there's making these factual judgments are made about, say, the efficacy of masks and lockdowns regarding the coronavirus and vaccinations, and they make these factual judgments about that, and then there's an unsafe assumption that is then made that if this factual judgment about, say, the efficacy of masks is true, therefore, say, a mask mandate should be made. Now, say a mask whenever you use words such as should, that is a normative judgment, not a scientific factual judgment. It's a philosophical judgment, whereby one is stating that such a state of affairs is better than another state of affairs. And there's nothing in science that can distinguish between better or worse. It only tells you way things are or are not. But so that I'm thinking that, well, maybe opponents of these lockdowns, mask mandates, and vaccine passports, maybe there's too much of arguing that's going on about the factual judgments about such things as the efficacy of masks, lockdowns, and vaccines, and so on. Perhaps what should be more so done is argue about the philosophical questions of how should people be governed, even if we take as a given that these factual judgments about the efficacy of these measures are taken as a given as true, even though I disagree with those factual judgments. But okay, for the sake of argument, let's say they are true. That does not necessarily mean that restrictions should be put in place. That is a philosophical, normative judgment, not a scientific, factual judgment. As an example, you can look back to the era of World War II, when Londoners were being bombed by the Germans. And at a certain point, the Londoners, the residents, they decided, we're just going to go about our lives. We're going to stop hunkering down in bomb shelters. We're going to go out in the streets and live our lives, even though there was no doubt about the quantity, the factual judgments about the quantity of the bombings and the dangers those bombs posed to the lives of the residents of London. They decided they wanted to, and they decided they should go about living their lives as they did before the bombing blitz. And there's nothing in science that can tell them that was a wrong decision. I think it was a good decision. So and then we compare that to now, presently, even if we take as a given that all these statistics that the restriction proponents are presenting their factual judgments about these efficacy of restrictive measures, even if we take as a given that they're true, then it does not necessarily mean that those restrictions should be put in place. maybe people should be allowed to go about their lives the same as they did before the coronavirus. I think they should. There's nothing in science that tells me that I'm wrong about that. Science is completely useless in telling me that I am wrong. Even if I say we should have a full open society without any coronavirus type restrictions, government imposed restrictions, even if we take as a given that everything the CDC and Dr. Fauci says is correct about their factual judgments about the efficacy of those measures, I believe we should still have a full open society, even if we take those factual judgments as a given as true. We should live lives where freedom is a paramount of a paramount importance, as an imperative. The people should be allowed to live freely without restrictions. They should just be able to decide for themselves what kind of risks they want to take or do not want to take. And they'll be free to hunker down if they want to, just as Londoners were they did not want to face the bombs. They were free to live in a bomb shelter, or if they wanted to. But the others who did not want to hunker down, they wanted to go about their lives as they did before the bombings. They were free to go and do that, and that was a good thing. I don't hear about anybody judging the Londoners as being wrong in going about their business during the London bombings by the Germans. That I think most people thought, oh, that good for them. So why aren't they saying the same thing now? Would be good for the people to get out and go about their lives without restrictions, without any vaccine passports, without the masks, if they so choose, without facing any kind of penalties or coercions or other sorts of any other sorts of restrictions on their freedom. So that's what maybe needs to be discussed more. It's the philosophical question of how to live, how to be governed. What is the importance of freedom? I think it's very important. The country of the United States was founded on the principle of being free. So why isn't that emphasized more? I think we should emphasize that more. We should talk about the philosophical questions involved here, about political philosophy. How should people live their lives, and how should they be governed? I think that should be more of an emphasis than it currently is. We just keep mired in this arguments back and forth over factual judgments about issues related to the statistical judgments, factual judgments about the statistics and efficacy of certain measures regarding coronavirus, but forgetting to discuss the social political philosophy and ethics of imposing those measures and restrictions. That's the point I wanted to make here, which I've been thinking about. So I guess that's all I have to say for now. If you're watching, thanks for watching.